So, going back to the moment you were making a decision about which tradition you want to pursue, um, what was some of the context uh, around that? I mean, were you thinking more of identity issues around that time? Were there other things going on that led you to think you need to make a decision?
You know, a little bit of both. It's a difficult question because I think there was questions of identity and owning my identity. Like when you're 16, you also are, nobody really knows who they are, and you're all always whatever ethnicity and whatever culture you may come from. If you have mixes, I think you're uncertain a little bit at 16, but you're coming to some conclusions, and I think I definitely was identifying more as being an Indian American and being more proud of that. Like not, there's an element of sometimes trying to hide it around your friend circle because it's foreign and kids are mean, they're rude, and they don't understand your culture. So sometimes they'll, I received some, racist this or that. You get experiences like that made me like, oh, okay, I'm not going to get too involved with that. But I think at that time I was also very much more proud of it, willing to kind of and wanting to find out more about myself, about India, about my grandmother, who was a big, huge inspiration for me. So that's one level of it. And then really just the core of what the music was, I was just really drawn to it. Like I was attracted to these ideas of these ragas and how you can just explore them however you wish. And I was starting to be able to express myself through it. It was like I feel like I started to realize the connection between the music and how playing it can make you feel a certain way, and how you can actually like release these emotions from you through your instrument. That idea was starting to sink in. I was starting to get it. I was starting to hear it more. I listened, even we had a concert, again, I was saying my parents organized a lot of concerts. So in my house, in my basement, we have a beautiful stage set up in the sound system.
Wow.
And we'd have concerts, yeah. And this one sitar player, first time I ever heard Hindustani music in my life, I was like 14. Shubhendra Rao, and he's from India, I believe from Bangalore. And he performed with a tabla player, and it absolutely blew my mind. I cried. I sat there, I was sitting on the stairs, like, not sitting with all the people, but I was sitting away from everyone else, and I was watching. I was like, it blew my mind, and it moved me in a way that I just didn't understand, and I was forever changed. And I like them. It were Shubhendra Rao, my gurus, when they performed in my basement that same year, were things that just put me over the edge for realizing the connection to the soul and how expression happens. I was just very, very connected to that now, and I think that was the main reason. It wasn't a pushing away of Western music; it was more of a running towards Carnatic music. Because even though I make the joke about the conductor being very strict about certain things, I really enjoyed that music too. There's also nothing like being in an orchestra and having 50 people together producing this incredible sound together. That was magical, and I was just getting into that part of Western classical music. I'd been in an orchestra really for 1 year. That was it. But for me, it was like I felt like I had to do one or the other at some point because school was also getting more intense, and I had to make choices in my life. We were going to college soon, and yeah. And really, it was just Carnatic music being so powerful is what it just took me. Yeah.
So you said you were doing something else. So what do you study in college?
So, I studied economics in college, and I worked, kind of part-time for a financial advisor, and I was thinking about going into the world of business, and it kind of changed quickly, though. I feel like in college I was also trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I was performing at there was a temple, the Shiva Vishnu temple, right outside University of Maryland, College Park, and a lot of musicians would come through there on tour from India, and so I'd get concerts there, and I would play with the local community quite a bit. So I was connected there and performing, and then I was doing school, but I never had a real passion academically. So economics was sort of, what do you say, just a choice, a practical choice that maybe made sense. But then after being there for 4 years, I realized that isn't what I wanted to do. And I worked for a financial advisor, cold calling people for his investment portfolio. And it was one of the experiences that I did not enjoy, let's just say that. It was not a good experience. And even the mentality of people in the business that I was meeting and discussing with was the opposite of what I wanted out of life and what I thought it was really about. So I was very actually not into it, and that actually drew me to go to India. So after college is when I went and lived in India for a year and a half, and to really fully immerse myself in music. And I lived with my gurus, those two, Mysore Nagaraj and Manjunath, and they live in the same house with their father, who recently passed away, but who was their guru. So they all live in the same house with their families, and it was an incredible experience, the best, most powerful experience, without a doubt, in my life. That kind of really, like, you were playing 10 hours a day. We were waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and playing for 2 hours before having coffee. And then, those moments are the morning is the greatest time to really, look inside yourself for your own passions or your, to try to express. So it was really a wonderful experience to be there and to learn. After coming back, though, there was still this sort of feeling inside of me, this practical feeling of my father is also just, I know I'm jumping around, but it's related, is that he is a civil engineer and, came to this country in 1970. And to this day, 2018, he's still at the same company. And, he was the chief engineer then, and then Mr. Joe Falco passed away. He's the owner of Falco Construction. Joe Falco passed away over 20 years ago, and my father's been running the company since. But he's this incredibly dedicated, consistent worker who has provided for our family forever. And to me, kind of is the example of, sometimes Indian American parents and fathers, and just doing what is quote unquote right. And he's always been that. So I have that bug in me who says that's what you should be doing. So I did, after coming back from India on my little sabbatical, I came back and I pursued work. And, but I knew I didn't want to do the finance thing. So the next thing was, my first teacher, his career, his job was these centers that would train young Indians and not just Indians, but it was primarily Indians, in quality assurance, software QA, coding, different things like that. So, and then place them at jobs. So it was perfect for me. It wasn't a 4-year program. It was like a 1 or a 9-month course. You learn a lot in that short time. There's very practical information, and then you get placed in a job. So I did that, and it worked for me. And I've always been good at sort of learning on the job and interactions with people, so I was able to do well in interviews, and I ended up getting a job. And then it was a project that lasted about 6 months, and when that ended, I got another full-time job and was in it. So then I was like, okay, here I am. So I was doing that for, I'm trying to think now, it might have been 2 or 3 years that I was doing that, and I was kind of doing music. I was playing, of course, like I always was, but I was never in, I still was not fully in. And so I worked for a while, and that's when I realized, man, you've been playing so much, you've been doing so much, you're at this age and you're still working, but you're not in love with your job, do something. So I switched, and I ended up doing music full time, and I was like, I have to give it a chance to just try full fledged, which I did, and that's when I kind of moved here to Brooklyn, and that's when a lot of things changed for me because I one was finally giving myself a chance to perform and play and immerse myself in it as an adult, and I was here, and I was meeting tons of people that were in the same boat and had similar interests, that listened to a Tribe Called Quest and played Indian classical music, that just kind of cared about all those things together and could relate. So a lot happened then.
Can we go back for one moment to your year in India? Can you talk about can you talk a bit more about how what that year was like? I mean, how did the gurus teach you? Were there other disciples in the house?
Yeah. So there were Nagaraj and Manjunath, these two brothers, are very close to my family. So again, through my parents, they are from the same part of India, and which is Karnataka, and they speak the same language, Kannada, and not too many Carnatic musicians speak Kannada. So when they met my dad, they were just like, great, and they would come over to our house, and they became very close very fast, and like sons and they look at my father like a father, and so I had that relationship with them. So I went to India. That's why I was able to stay in their house and do something like that. There were no other students. Maestro Nagaraj, the older brother, has a son. They both have sons. But when I first went, Karthik was 13. I was 21. And this kid was amazing. He was fantastic, of course. It's just in his blood. So he would be there with me a lot of these mornings and many of the practice sessions and classes. And they would both teach me, and they're both unique violinists in their own right. So they have different things that they bring to the table, and they have very different personalities, but they're groomed by the same guru, the same father, so their fundamentals are very much the same. But there are differences in the way they teach, and I knew their music in and out. Like, I could identify who was who with 100% accuracy in a second because I just knew them that well. I'd listened so much to their music. So when I was with them, I could really I felt like I could clearly understand what they were teaching me, and maybe why, when I was trying. So I would learn primarily from the older brother Nagaraj in the mornings, and the evenings it would be with Manjunath, the younger brother, and we would basically tackle ragas, and Nagaraj, his idea was in the morning, like we were talking about the morning time, if you take one raga in the morning and you just really work at it, it's almost like exercise, right? You're doing exercises, you're doing things to strengthen your technique. Then take that same raga, so you do that for hours in the morning, and then take that same raga at night, and now try to express through it, right? So you kind of had a day, you had a morning with it, where you woke up with it, so now it's fresh in your body, and then throughout the day, you're kind of thinking about it, you're singing it, you're humming it to yourself. Probably I would practice on my own with it, and then at night, then it's like, now let's approach it from this other angle, and now let's be creative with it. And it wasn't always easy, in fact, most of the time it wasn't easy. It was quite difficult because they're constantly challenging you to a point of like you feel like you know absolutely nothing. You go to that point of zero every single day, and it's humbling and it's realistic and it's but it's incredibly inspiring. So it was like it could be very difficult, and maybe one little anecdote that is kind of funny and also like it was difficult to handle at the time. But their father, so his name is Mahadevappa, and he didn't really speak any English, but I understand and could speak Kannada. I understand Kannada completely, but I couldn't really speak it, so I couldn't really speak with him so much. but he could very much speak to me. And so me and Karthik, his grandson, he would say, we're going to do a concert. I'm going to arrange a concert for both of you. You better practice. We're going to do this 1 month. I'm like, okay. So we practice like crazy. And then 2 weeks before the concert, he'd be like, okay, tonight you're going to play what you're going to play for me. And then we say, okay, and we play. And then he would get furious and be like, you come to my house here and you play like this? Like, the concert's canceled, it's off. So we canceled the concert. We'd be kind of devastated. And like, but then we would work and practice until he agreed to do it again. And he said, okay, we can do the concert, but you can't play like you did last time. And he did that to us like 3 or 4 times in a row. And like, you'd think we would learn, but it was more, every time we went back there, we were better than we were the time before. You know, I can tell you that. And while we were intimidated by him, I was, and I'm sure he was, he got us to work. He got us to work very hard, and he made us better in that 1 month, where it ended up spanning over 3 months. But he made us improve, and he made us think about how we practiced, and to be more critical of our own selves and how we practice and what we think about, what we decide that we're okay with. All of a sudden, we were not okay with it. It had to be better. So our level of what we expected of ourselves became so much higher. And I mean, he obviously fully intended to do that. I think that was always his plan.
Right.
And it worked. But it was that kind of experience where every day we were really questioning ourselves, and I was really pushing myself and trying to understand more about myself as a musician. But some of it was sometimes because I would leave Mysore to go visit my family in Bangalore, which is like a 2-hour train ride. So I would I'd go away for a weekend, and those were the times where I could reflect a little bit more. When I was there, I would try not to, because and you wouldn't have the time to, and I would tell myself, you're not here to reflect, you're here to work. Put your head down and go, and just take in whatever you can take, be a sponge. And when I go to Bangalore, I would try to sit back and be like, what's happening here, and I'd practice. But I would find that even being that far removed, when I would practice, there would be something that was missing. Like, I felt like I was playing, but I wasn't playing with the same vigor or the same complete involvement as I had when I was there. So I'm always trying to figure out how to get to that mental space. That's a lot of what they taught me about, right? Was the mental side of music. It's obviously physically you have to do things, but how do you get to that space personally where you're in it completely?
So were you working with a drummer?
No.
So it's just you.
It's just me. Yeah.
Okay.
Just me and violins, other violinists, singers. Sometimes I work with. I mean, if I was performing, there'd be a mridangist,
right,
or a singer. But for the lessons and for the practice and stuff, it was almost always just violin. And sometimes there'd be a vocalist who would come over, and then you would accompany him.
I'm taking it.
Sure.
Could you speak a little bit about that mental side of music? Like, when you said you weren't really, you noticed the sort of lack of it when you were away from this, and then how do you? I'm guessing you know where that space is now. Do you know when that happened, or kind of when you were aware of it happening?
I mean, I feel like it's an ongoing quest in a way, and it's kind of more your own concentration than anything else, and it's kind of like when you going to this place of, and I feel like it's tied to confidence. It's tied to kind of a complete belief in yourself and what you want to do. And so that kind of immersion, we would turn on the drone and listening to that, and then just connecting with the instrument and sitting there in silence and listening to the drone. And, so then to get to this place where you are not hearing or thinking about anything else outside of that drone and then the sounds that your instrument's making. So like it depends on what you're playing. Sometimes if I'm tackling something new, it's very difficult to get to that space. When I was away from Mysore in that time, I felt like I wasn't. When I was in Mysore, I felt like I would be kind of channeling my gurus. Like I would feel their presence, and their presence gave me the confidence and belief because they used to speak to me that way about like you can do this and you can do this. So they gave me this strength, and without them there, maybe I was missing that, and I wasn't able to produce it myself. That strength, and so that's why I was maybe not able to kind of get as deep as I wanted to go. And I think it's a constant. We're always working on. I'm always working on that idea of like how do I get to that place in this basement. When I sit on this carpet and play every day, I do this. I turn on the drone. I listen to it. I try to focus on what I'm about to do, and just that. And sometimes I can get where I want, and sometimes I can't. And I think it has to do with how in practice you are, how connected with the music and the kind of feelings that are associated with it you are. There's so many things that happen in your life every day that get in the way, that distract, and you have to kind of try to clear those distractions. So it's an ongoing process, I'll say that.